Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Marshall, Vice President here at Colorado Mesa University, joined by my colleague, Dr. Amy Bronson, co-chairs of our Safe Together, Strong Together plan on campus here. Today, we are welcoming a variety of new guests on our show. Guess we could call it a show. And going to provide a handful of updates. And as always, we'll try and answer your questions as they come in today. A quick word at the outset, the reason that we are demasking is consistent with Governor Polis's order in providing television addresses, and to ensure that we're communicating well, we'll remove our masks during the production of this, and then they'll go right back on at the end of our show. Dr. Bronson, nice to have you.
It's good to be here.
So this week, President Foster sent out a note to the campus initiating our newest phase of our Safe Together, Strong Together plan. We've called that The Future is Now. And really, this is a natural progression of the work that we've done up to this point. And what I might do is walk us back through how we got here. Back in March, we started off responding, playing defense, if you will, to this coronavirus pandemic, really not fully understanding the breadth of it, the depth of it, and a lot of some of the technical elements and medical elements of it. Pretty quickly, we got our sea legs under us, and we transitioned into really planning ahead and making a values-based decision that we needed to bring students and campus back here in person, face-to-face. I think about Dr. Bronson early on. Now, of course, you're in the medical profession, and so you brought a whole litany of new or maybe embedded expertise, but many of us really didn't understand a lot of things like contact tracing and what a PCR test was. We certainly didn't understand wastewater testing and the like, and it just dawns on me that, boy, we've come a long way, right?
Absolutely. Come a long way. And I think when you think about the value base that we began with, that's not changing. As we pivot towards this next phase, it really is still about the same thing, about being able to be together on campus safely. But the great news about it is we've built the infrastructure, and now it's less about having to build and create as it is being able to optimize what we're doing. So it's only going to get better as we continue to move forward. So you're exactly right. How many of us had thought about contact tracing and what it was going to take to have a sampling site here on campus? But we've done it. Not only have we done it, we've been able to build the infrastructure to scale it up. And now we're ready as we pivot and start thinking about spring semester of how can we continue to do that even better. And not only that, think about the partnerships we have now.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah, we think about MIT and Harvard and the Broad Institute and Dr. Sabetti standing behind us and saying, yes, we're standing with you and willing to row this boat. That's amazing. And that's what's going to continue to make us stronger as we continue to pivot towards this next phase.
Yeah, I think of our values, and we've talked about this a lot, but the reality is that as we think about what really matters to our future, and that is the creators and the doers and the doctors and the healers and the inventors and the engineers of tomorrow are here today on this campus doing that work of exploring, growing, learning, and earning those degrees, and being in person is allowing that. So we're really glad to do that. One of the things that has happened as part of our campus plan is that a whole variety of us stopped doing our day jobs, and we got deployed directly to this coronavirus effort. And we're thrilled today to welcome 3 key team members who literally got plucked out of their day jobs, developed entire new expertises, and really have been some of the unsung heroes making this return to campus plan work. So before we get to that team, we'll talk a little bit today about testing, about tracing, and just the core infrastructure of how we've done a lot of this work. I wonder, Dr. Bronson, if you might chat with us about a couple of the updates, in particular, this conversation that has been evolving over the last several weeks about sequencing the genomes of SARS-CoV-2 strains here on campus.
Absolutely. And I think when you put out the word genomic sequencing, I think the first alarm bell is, wait, you're sequencing DNA and genomes? And I think to clarify is exactly that. The sequencing is going to be of the SARS-CoV-2 genome, meaning we can take a positive sample that has SARS-CoV-2 detected in it, And not we, but the lab at the Broad Institute and Dr. Sabetti and her incredible team can actually look at the virus type, and to be able to tell us a little bit more about how effective contact tracing is and the ability to be able to stop the spread of the virus. So again, this is not about sequencing human genomes. It has nothing to do with that. It really has to do with just the virus and knowing a little bit more about the virus type and really how we are able to better respond and mitigate and keep our campus safe because of that.
One of the spin-offs of MIT and Broad is a group called Fathom, and they've been a great partner of ours, helping us to see this data. And I think some of the work you saw just now on screen is credited to our friends at Fathom, really helping to visualize what's going on. I like to think of this as kind of a family tree, and you can sort of track those strains of the virus, right, by where it came to, and just amazing technology. But what it really helps us figure out then as we track the different strains is, are the same strains being passed around the campus, or are we seeing new strains coming in from the community? And really will help us continue to morph and adjust and respond to our strategies here on campus, right?
That's exactly right. Yep.
Well, we're excited about that. The other update I want to make sure that everybody's following is our wastewater testing and monitoring and the successes that we've had there. On the wastewater side of things, at the front end of this, you talked about those things that we didn't know a few months ago and what we've developed today with the help of some very industrious and hardworking students and faculty members. I think of Dr. Carrie Schultes and Dr. Kelly Bevel and that whole team of engineers that, along with their students, have built out all these wastewater collection sites. We've now, by my count, prevented 3 potential outbreaks where students weren't aware there were infections going on. We could see that spike in the wastewater, spool up testing real quickly, and find some positives, get them isolated, and sure enough, you see that wastewater tailing in the next collection point. This week, we were able to use it to confirm we had more cases than we thought in a particular residence hall. Yet again, really coming in handy, becoming one of the most important tools that we've had to keep our campus safe. So really appreciate seeing these technologies continue to grow, and as a team, our competencies grow in our ability to respond with this infrastructure. So. Yep.
And I think one of the most important pieces of the wastewater testing is it's able to pick up those asymptomatic cases that we maybe wouldn't identify until either someone had symptoms or maybe they never did. But we can really prevent an outbreak happening specifically within our residence halls by having that early warning sign of the wastewater system.
Yeah, it really has become an alarm bell of sorts for us, and served as that tool for us. So we're grateful to have that tool with us. So today, as we said, we've asked 3 of our team members to join today. First up is a talented friend and colleague, Megan O'Neill. Megan, as it turns out, used to work in the University Center, her day job prior to this work, and Megan now is really Grand Central Station here in COVID Command, as it's become affectionately known around campus. So Megan, welcome. Thanks for coming. You are spending your days taking call after call, email after email, all the work that you're doing. What has that been like, transitioning from, you had a perfectly great job, you enjoyed it, all of a sudden you get plucked out of there. What's that transition been like for you?
It's definitely been different. In the University Center, I'm working with students directly with the different events that they run, and now it's a different type of streamlining of just being able to work with them directly and the questions that they have coming in. So it's been really great to have them and have that open form of communication with them, and we're happy to help in any way that we can.
Seems like we spend a lot of time trying to, emails and Facebook Lives and all the various work we've done to try and communicate with faculty and staff and parents and others. But at the end of the day, it's a lot, right? We're just we've got this avalanche of information that we're pouring on them. And so a lot of what you're doing is really helping clarify some of those fine detail sort of questions, right?
Absolutely. So, the questions certainly vary from I've traveled and, we have unexpected circumstances. How can we come back safely, and what's the process that we need to take Or it could be just, I have an absence, what kind of forms do I need to be filling out? So yeah, definitely all the different types of questions that we're having come through, but we're definitely happy to help answer any of those questions and make it as easy as we can for the students.
And so the safety at Colorado Email, that email address, you've really been the one backstopping a lot of that work and making sure that's getting responded to appropriately and in a timely fashion. I mean, good heavens, how many emails have you responded to, you think, in the last 2 months?
I mean, definitely a couple hundred for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a couple thousand. But yeah, it's been great. I think with our team being able to make sure that we're getting the correct information to those students has been super helpful. So the team itself and, all of our colleagues across campus have been extremely helpful with getting those correct answers to those students. So yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's not a simple lift, and I know early on, I remember as we were working with testing and some other work across campus, in the middle of the day, I went and looked at the safety emails, and I think we had gotten something like, 170 some in 1 hour, and I was thinking, this is going to be a pretty serious few months, but you've really handled that with a lot of deftness and professionalism. We really appreciate that. What's been the most challenging thing that you've had to face, other than Amy and I?
I was going to say, wrangling. I think that's probably high on the list for Megan.
I mean, I think the most challenging is just it's so unknown. So I think just being able to figure out what is the right process. And I think you and I and Amy, we've all said that we might make mistakes along the way, but we're going to make sure that we can get those correct answers to those students. So just having the unknown has been the most difficult. But I think that having a team has made it that much better of just being able to help the students as best as we can as our team here and then the team across campus. And I think having that has really made it that much better of a process.
Well, it seems like, as we go through our days, oftentimes the first time we'll hear of something that we really hadn't thought of how to solve a problem, we didn't even know it was a problem maybe, has really been through you as you've got your ear to the ground talking to parents, talking to students, and finding out what's on their mind, right? It seems like a lot of those things have come up through that, just talking to people, right?
Absolutely. So I think the feedback that we've received from the students and parents has been extremely helpful, and we're very appreciative when we do get that great feedback because I think it's the best way that we can help improve the process that we have set in place. So certainly appreciate that when those are coming through the safety email or the phone calls.
As we think about when we all started in on this, the list of unknowns was pretty long. But today, you've kind of become an expert in this field in a lot of ways, right? I mean, it's funny to think about, but you've developed this expertise as we pivot towards spring. Do you feel more confident, ready to go for spring than you did maybe in July?
I definitely feel more confident. And I think it's been again, just I think our campus team in general has been extremely helpful to help us be prepared for the spring. And I definitely think that I think we're all excited to take on that next semester and continually to have our students here on campus. So
Yeah. Looks like we got a comment from Michelle, and Michelle expressing some gratitude for this. And I know, we feel the same way, but we have some folks out there saying, thanks, Megan, for your work, and we appreciate that a lot. Megan, thanks for stopping by. We so appreciate the work, behind the scenes and a lot of the unsung heroes, but Megan O'Neill clearly one of those individuals. So thanks for coming by today, Megan.
thank you.
One of the other elements that has really been a lift for us and a team that you've really led has been this work around contact tracing. So I wonder if you might not introduce that concept and maybe help us introduce our next guest.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have talked about contact tracing and what is that, and really it began with our partnership with Mesa County Public Health to know contact tracing is something in the world of epidemiology that's been around forever. Any reportable disease gets some sort of contact tracing done around it. It just has not been raised to the public level where we all were sort of familiar with, and now it's kind of become common vernacular that we can all sort of talk about, oh yeah, we know what contact tracing is. And I would say from our team, one of the best things to watch is just some really thoughtful, engaged people across our campus that have come together to say we can do this and we can do it well. And contact tracing in the world of being able to mitigate and stop the spread of a virus is so important because it's all about minutes, not hours. And when you talk about a group of folks that have killed themselves to make sure that they are making phone calls late at night over the weekend. It's this team, and it's a pleasure to get to actually introduce Michael Hughes, who is the lead on our contact tracing team, and has really become the liaison of ensuring that these cases are followed up with quickly, and not only that the cases are followed up with, but that anyone that gets a red screen across campus that may have something going on, he ensures that the team is following up and making sure that they're taken care of. And Michael has also gone the extra step of not only just a phone call, but the follow-up phone calls, which I think are most important. So it is with pleasure. Michael Hughes, thanks for being on the team.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Michael, what was your job before you became the chief sultan of contact tracing?
So I was the assistant director of campus recreation here on campus.
Got it. And you transitioned into this role over the summer like a lot of us, right?
Yes, exactly.
How many contact tracers do you have on your team right now?
So I'd say we have, approximately a dozen, and that's students, that's staff, that's faculty. And I mean, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing without their help. I mean, they've been awesome. Making those calls, helping me late nights, weekends, early mornings, doing the failed attestation calls, follow-ups, sending emails. I mean, we've got a really, really good team with us, and it's just been a joy to see them help me out, and it's been fun, kind of a fun, challenging experience.
Walk us through the steps. So all of a sudden, we know we have a positive test that's resulted. What happens next? Tell us a little bit about what your process is.
So we get the positive case comes in, and then what I would do is I would get in contact with that person. And so there's a form we fill out. We also have a script for some of our students that they can follow. But essentially, we call that student that is a positive case, and we just talk through a script on, asking them a whole bunch of questions on how or where did they get exposed at, who are their roommates, who are their close contacts, just trying to get as much information as we possibly can from them so that then we can, go to make the phone calls to those people as well and, just keep the cases to a minimum as much as we possibly can.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's such an incredible point you were talking about the global team and who's behind all of this. I think it's easy to think about our contact tracing team, but then it's also sort of our cadre of medical professionals and the Mesa County Public Health that we're collaborating with on every single one of these cases that really has become part of this bigger, broader team that's not only here on campus, but community-wide. Tell us a little bit about what relationships you've developed with Mesa County Public Health as we've walked through this sort of step and step together.
So, with each one of our cases, we're reaching out to the Mesa County Public Health just to let them know, hey, we have these cases on our campus. And if these cases are strictly just our students living in the residence hall, we handle all of those internally just as a kind of a campus side of things. What's kind of interesting as well is I've developed even more relationships with our residence life department because if we have a positive case on campus, we try and isolate them in a different room, in a different dorm, just to kind of keep the exposures to a minimum. So it's phone calls to residence life as well, just saying, help facilitate this student to move from one dorm to another, provide meals. And so we have, our team is, like you said, Amy, very large with residence life, with our food service at EXO, and just making sure our students are comfortable as much as they can be while they're in isolation, and just offering those resources to them.
Yeah, I think it's such a great point to bring up that the contact tracing piece is one element, but really the wraparound care that's there for students is so important. What is some of those sort of support structures that have been put into place for students that are in isolation or quarantine to support, obviously, not just their symptoms, but other things that are going on related to, whether or not they can go to class and can they access food? What does that look like on our campus?
So what we do is we try and reach out to them and let them know Student Services is behind them 100%. And so, we ask them to complete a form that gets routed to their professors, letting them know that for an extended period of time they'll be out of in-person coursework, and to provide those electronic options for them to complete coursework. The food options, especially if they're on campus, we meet with Residence Life, and they're able to kind of take their lunch and dinner. They can order lunch and dinner, and get that delivered to them. And so it's really just trying to make sure that they are safe. We allow them to take, their TV into that room if they are being moved into a different location. Because for some of these kids, especially if they're asymptomatic, I mean, they're sitting in a room by themselves essentially for 10 days, and that can get very boring. And so we try to give them, some additional things. I know we are working with Young Life as well, who's providing just a little goodie bag of saying, hey, we're here to help any way that we can. And just let these students know that they can call us, text us, email us at any point in time, and we're really at their beck and call just to try and help them out and get them through this.
I wonder if, as I've thought about the role you've played on our team, Dr. Bronson, and really, I think, serving as that additional consult on a handful of these questions that to a medical professional is second nature, but to lay people and those of us who've basically been redeployed and that's not our background. I wonder if you might talk a minute about that. How's it for you, whether it's Dr. Graham or Dr. Reeder or Dr. Bronson, the team of epidemiologists at Mesa County, having that kind of a backstop and those consults at a phone call away, how has that worked for your team?
I think that's worked great. So obviously I can't answer every question. And so just being able to call Amy or text her any hour, any minute of the day, just, as reassurance has been awesome. And I know I can count even on the county if, I can't get through to Amy, but Amy's always quick to get back in touch with me. And so, if there's something that I, am thinking that I know the answer to, but I just want that clarification, I usually just reach out and get that just to help me out there.
Big team effort as far as making sure we're getting the best information most accurately, right?
Yes.
The other thing you made reference to, but I know, between our broader team, but you really have been at the epicenter of this. It's late nights, it's early mornings, it's weekends. I mean, these tests are running 24/7, right? They're resulting.
Yeah.
So you're seeing these come across at all hours of the night, on weekends, whenever. And so you really have been on a 24/7 run since late July, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So tests are, even just this week, we've been seeing those come in. Some of them will come in at 6 o'clock and some of them at 10 o'clock. It just depends on really when the lab gets that completed and when we get those positive test results. And so, it could be a 10 o'clock phone call. We try to, limit our late night phone calls to, early morning rather than the late night. So about 10 o'clock, just so students aren't having to take that phone call. But often I'll just send a quick text that just says, hey, would you mind having, would you mind having this phone call now? Or would you prefer to do it in the morning? And so we kind of do it at all hours of the day.
Yeah, and students tend to be more nocturnal, right? So
Yes.
they're
That works
happy
for
to
their
chat at night.
schedules.
That's right.
And I think, Michael, what I so appreciate about you and what you did in your last role is, yes, it's the logistics, it's the planning, it's all those pieces, but true to who you are and at the core of who you are is you care about our students. And I think that's what makes you so good at this role and at what you do. And yes, there's a huge team underneath you, but you are the logistics that oversees that. And we just so appreciate all that you've done to be a part of not only the contact tracing team, but to be an extension of what care looks like for students on our campus. So appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate all your work, Michael.
Of course.
The contact tracers, of course, are such a vital piece, but maybe the preceding element to a contact trace, of course, is the testing element. And so the last element of our conversation today, we're glad to welcome Emma Lienerman, who has really just done yeoman's work standing up what has affectionately become known as Little DIA, where we've built out this mass testing site that, to state the obvious, that's not something that we have ever done before.
Nope.
Before we jump into that, I wanted to recognize Sawyer, and thanks for the comment. This coming semester, the future is now phase, we're really looking to continue to optimize. We've now built this competence and infrastructure. We're really looking to optimize, and we appreciate you helping us to get better. And that's really the phase we're in, is figuring out every day how to continue to improve on the margins and get better at what we're doing. So appreciate that comment, Sawyer. With that, Emma Lienerman. Emma, thanks for coming by today.
Yeah, thanks,
And the
guys.
smiling face that so many have gotten to say hi to when they show up for a test. How many people have you tested at your site so far in the last few months?
We have tested just over 13,000 over here at our test site.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, more every day. So
And you're running this whole site by yourself, is that right?
no, I also have a team, just like the rest of our group. So I have a team of students that
do the check-in, check-out, printing the labels for everyone, and then we have the level 4 nursing students under Dr. Lucy Graham who administer the tests or watch the student administer their test.
How many of those level 4 nursing students are out there putting their skills to work?
The whole group of level 4 that will all graduate in December, I believe most all of them have been able to take a shift out there. It just kind of depends on their hours, but we've gotten to see a lot of new faces, and even just the last week we've gotten some new ones out there. So
Yeah. What are your hours out there?
This week was a little extended because we did some additional testing after fall break, but we were out there this week from 9 to noon. Usually we're out from 10 to noon, so in a couple hours we usually test between 100 and 200 students.
Every day.
Yes.
It's amazing. And as we are thinking about the future is now, and we're pivoting and optimization of testing, I think it's fun to think back of where testing began and what the site looked like when we started this whole process, and just what you have been able to do over that time. Talk us through just a little bit of the logistics when we started and that testing sampling site, and now what have you changed and shifted that has made it just really efficient and a really great experience for people on campus?
Yeah, we have changed a lot since the very beginning. The first week when I did this, which I think was July 17th maybe, we were at a small house on Kennedy over here. Everyone probably knows that little house that's right next to the testing site, but the front yard was where we did the first small groups of tests. And since then we expanded. We had a 4-lane drive-through in the Bunting Hall parking lot, which we have since condensed down to 2 lanes. But when we did our big volume pre-semester testing, we were running over 150 cars an hour. So we got through quite a few tests that couple weeks, and then now with our random testing and testing some of the other students on campus, we're down to 2 lanes. We've gone through a few different kinds of tests. So we implemented the LAMP saliva test side by side with the PCR test, and we have since broken up those surveillance tests and the diagnostic test, and there was a lot of changes in there, but we're running it pretty smoothly now. So yeah.
You really have been at the tip of the spear as we have been innovating, working with our partners, getting new and different advice from everyone from, I think at Gary Community Investments and the work that they've done, partnering with Silicon Valley firms like Primary Bio that I know you've become attached at the hip with some of these folks, really solving problems in real time, trying to figure out all the various challenges to ensure that, literally 14,000 tests later, you've been able to work through.
Yeah, those partners have been great, and most of the students are familiar with primarybio.com at this point and scheduling their tests. Throughout this whole process, we haven't had hardly any hiccups with those guys, and being able to get students scheduled for tests, the following day is no problem at all. So we lost power once, and we were able to get that back up. We've changed our labeling system quite a few times, and they're always right there to back us up. So that's been great.
I think one of the things that I continue to hear from people out at the testing site is, I'm not sure there's anything Emma can't do. And I think about that, right? This tent collapsed, and what are we going to do? And Emma troubleshooting around, different printing types, and so appreciate your willingness to troubleshoot and sort of work a problem and figure it out and keep things moving forward. And as I think about spring and what testing is going to look like, obviously we're thinking about heating and, trying to continue to make the testing experience good out there. What are some things that you're seeing that you go, this is going to be really great as we continue to sort of roll these things forward and optimize what we're already doing?
Yeah, I think just being able to do that large volume at the beginning of the semester, we see what that's like. We know what it looks like to be able to run that many cars through, and having already seen that once, we have to change heating, and we might still be outside, but the participants are warm in their cars and they're able to continue to drive through. So yeah, having that experience this time, we'll make our small changes, but I think it looks really good.
That's great.
I also have reflected on the fact that, through thousands of tests, but it isn't just that, right? I mean, we've also had to come up with ways to figure out, timing-wise and learning new technologies and working with IT and facilities and just all the moving parts that have gone into that. What did you do at the university before you became the testing queen?
Yes, before this, I am the coordinator of alumni and campus engagement. So I have worked on campus with a lot of these groups quite a bit, but definitely not in this fashion. So it's been really fun to get to work with a big team and facilities, helping me with the tents and parking, helping me with that parking lot. And, we have many cones. They end up, all over sometimes. But, it's been super great. And I could not have done it without everybody else's help. So
Talk a little bit about some of your students. I know you've got all the nursing students, but you also have a team of work studies, right?
I do, yes. I have 8 work studies currently, but throughout this whole process, I've had some that have come and go just because of, class schedules and stuff. But yeah, they have been great. We have a couple students that have been there throughout, but one of my students, Tommy, he's kind of the checkout master, and he, has done that position for the entire time that this testing has been going on. If there's an issue within primary bio, he can also solve those, and having really great students in the check-in and getting people through quickly and with a smile on their face has helped so much. So,
What's your nickname for Tommy?
Test Site Tommy.
Test Site Tommy.
That's amazing.
Tommy, you don't see him because he's not at the check-in, but he's the one back there that's printing all the labels. He's run both lanes with, just himself back there and one printer, so.
Like so much of what we do around here, students really make it possible, and another great example of that. I really appreciate that.
They're all super fun. I texted them before this, so they might be tuning in.
I hope so.
amazing.
I hope so. Well, Emma, so appreciate the work that you've done and really how you've dove into this. It's, when we've chatted now about this with a variety of folks and across the country, really been getting accolades as an institution. And you, Michael, Megan, the whole team really is where a lot of that credit lies. So thanks for all your work.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Really appreciate
It's
everything
been
you've
fun.
done. We talked a lot about the sheer volume of testing that we've done, and I think part of the great piece about what Emma and Michael and Megan do is they really create an experience around that, because I think it's really easy to think about the sheer volume of testing we're doing and how often people may be tested, that could be mentally a hard thing. I wonder if it's maybe a good time to talk just a little bit about kind of the wraparound that we also have here on campus for some of that mental health and awareness that is happening because of COVID and because of what we usually do on campus to support that for our students anyways.
Yeah, it's a great reminder for all of us that there is a toll to this, and I think all of us are feeling some level of that anxiety and stress that is built over this last several months. I see all the internet memes about 2020, but there's some reality to that, and I think our young people here on campus have experienced that too. One of the things we've seen at our Student Wellness Center, as many of you know, that's also not just our student clinic where you might go for cold or flu symptoms, but it's also where you can go to chat with a licensed professional counselor, LPC, or therapist, and have a confidential conversation to work through some of these more difficult mental health challenges. We've actually scaled up some of those services because we have seen students asking for it, and we've seen demand rise a little bit this semester. And so really making sure that we're providing those opportunities for students. I think the other reality has been that, working through the lockdown, working through the stay-at-home orders and all the things that we've all gone through together as a state, as a community, we've talked a lot about what student life has done, but the concerts and the game nights and, intramurals and athletics and, I don't even know what we call them, Zumba classes and group fitness and all the things that students can do to really care for their physical and mental well-being has been a pretty vital element for us as a campus. And it doesn't necessarily make it any easier, but providing those outlets, I think, helps us all know that we can support each other, we can work through this, and that's certainly true for our students here on campus. But I couldn't agree more with you, Dr. Bronson. That really has been one of those areas where, just such a vital resource on campus.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's important too, we talk about, all of the testing that we've done, but really the random testing that we're doing on campus, it really gives us a good idea of what the COVID landscape looks like, is truly that, a random sample. It is a generated number that comes up that is then sent on to Emma's team, and they make it happen in getting folks out there to get that sampling done. And so that truly is a random sample. And then we certainly have that detection testing that follows on with the contact tracing team. And they identify folks that may have been in close contact to a known positive, and we go ahead and get them tested as well. So I think understanding where that testing is coming from, not everyone's getting tested on a real regular basis. It truly is sort of this random sampling that's happening across campus.
Yeah.
That truly is random.
I wonder, we talked about with Emma the rapid saliva or the RT lamp assay, again, a new term I needed to learn. But we've now been through a whole validation of that, right? It's kind of an informal validation that we did internally to say, if we set this side by side with PCR diagnostic tests, which we know to be highly accurate,
Yep.
how does that rapid saliva, which we know has a lower sensitivity, how does it fare? And we got through something north of 700
That's right.
screenings side by side. How did we do with those?
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to bring up. And maybe even before we talk about the number, just talking about what the test is, that it's a
Sure.
screening test.
Yeah.
And I think, getting the information out there that, yes, it is not a diagnostic test, it's a screening test. So it's going to tell us whether or not we detect SARS-CoV-2 or not whether or not it's positive or negative, which I think is a good differentiator.
Yeah.
And then, yes, when we're standing those side by side in our own internal validation, what was that data?
Yeah, to build on that, one of the things I was most impressed with about this RT lamp assay is the speed at which we can turn it, right? So we do that on campus. Those screenings don't leave and get shipped out somewhere. We actually do those right here in Woburn Science in one of our science labs. We're able to turn those same day. So what you lose in a little bit of sensitivity, you gain in speed, right?
That's right.
But as it turns out, that loss in sensitivity turned out to be very minimal. I think something on the order of 98% of the tests that we did side by side with the diagnostic were concordant data, meaning we got the same result. And there were a handful, and by that I literally mean a handful. There were, I think, 6 that we found that didn't match for one reason, and one here and one there for a different reason. And we had to learn quite a bit because there's a whole lot of science and lab happening. I should say, in the laboratory, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's important to point out that even those data points that were discordant, so a different result, a lot of that, or majority of those, over 90% of those were known that we may not pick that up because of the sensitivity level. And we know that. And part of that sensitivity is understanding that even though we lose a little bit of sensitivity, like you said, time, and more as the data continues to come out and there's more evidence-based medicine that we're continuing to follow with guidelines, that's the really important piece, is how quickly we can intervene and stop the potential for spread.
Yeah. Well, that's been one of those areas where we developed this new competency as a campus and now have that capacity. We've upgraded our labs. Our microbiologists, PhDs over there are all happy to get some additional equipment and some additional technology over there, and that's really allowed us to upgrade what we're doing here, so appreciate that.
Good.
So I wonder if you might, my tablet went down for a moment. If there's any questions, happy to move into that Q&A phase at this point, so.
All right. If you want to go ahead and post comments down in the chat, we can certainly address those. If you have any questions, let's let those fly in so that we can.
And tomorrow, of course, Dr. Bronson and I are going to have a chance to update our Board of Trustees. So we're happy to give you a sneak preview of any of that information here yet today. Feel free to post those questions or comments in the chat, and we'll try and respond to them as we go here.
Absolutely. Yeah, and maybe a little sneak preview that we can just provide folks. We've talked about saliva, we've talked about testing.
Yeah.
Maybe a little update and a little sneak preview of optimization and where we might be headed this spring.
Yeah, interesting. We've been working closely, as we've said, with our partners over at Gary Community Investments, or COVID Check Colorado, which is a partner out of the Denver area. And they are on the verge of bringing online a new lab for us to be able to utilize. It's a Colorado lab, veteran-owned lab that is going to be only the 4th in the country. I think there are some 200 that are looking to validate this test. But some of you may have heard of the Yale test or the Saliva Direct. And really what this Saliva Direct is doing is taking something like our nasal swabs, but speeding up the time, but it's still a diagnostic PCR test, meaning a highly accurate test, but something that we anticipate being able to turn in under 24 hours. You know, and again, getting back to your point, the science is telling us the faster we get those results, the better off and the safer we are as a campus. We're excited to be able to begin testing that out next week. We think that, I think those kits have arrived and we're working on preparing our team, and Emma and her whole squad are ramping up for next week to begin testing that Saliva Direct PCR test, which is really exciting in terms of optimization. And it's a simpler test to do, right? No more Q-tip up the nose.
That's
It's
right.
simply a little bit of spit in a tube.
Just
and
give us some more spit.
and that's it, right?
That's it.
This is one of the most interesting and, if not grossest, experiences I've had. So
amazing.
anyhow,
So we brought up at the beginning, the future is now. Maybe a little reminder on what is that? You know, we dropped this term. We've talked a little bit about the next phase. Maybe a little reminder of what is the future is now.
well, here's how I think about it. We've spent months in planning, thinking about what may be coming down the road and what might happen with the pandemic and how we might be able to test people, and maybe we could stand up this and maybe we could set up that. And the reality is we've done those things now. We've learned a lot as a campus. We're now operating well. And you do this from I think, a vantage point of deep humility, right? Knowing that we don't have all the answers. But that's different, I think, in many ways. And part of what we're trying to describe here is we have developed these competencies and the confidence to say we are ready to manage this university in the midst and through this pandemic successfully. So it really moves away from this idea that we're not really sure what's coming. Well, that's true, but we're confident that we're ready to handle that. So as classes are coming online for next semester, we anticipate that students are going to have a lot more in-person experiences. We've worked carefully with the county to optimize our public spaces. We know what all the testing and the tracing and the isolation work that's coming. So we've developed those competencies. So I would say we continue to sit from a position of humility, knowing we don't know it all, but we know how to do this work now. And so I think we're moving past this idea of sort of, we're not really sure what's coming. That's true, but we're quite sure how we're going to handle it. We have a good plan, we have a good team, and so I think that's where this idea of the future is now. We're ready. We're no longer going to be sitting on our hands and wondering what's coming. We're actively doing the work of running a university, giving students that experience, and really trying to lean into where we head next.
That's right. I think one of the values we started with was a nimbleness to be able to not just react and respond. But I think the beauty of heading into this next phase is we are poised in a place now where we have the infrastructure and we are still nimble and can still respond to new technologies that are coming out, the new literature and the new science that's coming. We are willing to sort of stay step in step with that, but we have a lot of learning behind us that we've already gone through and done on our own and learned from others that we can build on from here, which is exciting.
Really is. We're really excited to be continuing on in this work together. That is done as a campus, and so whether that's you as students or you parents as partners, whether that's faculty, staff, we continue to be in this thing together, being willing to do the hard work together. But we're excited to be here and continuing on.
That's right.
Future is now.
The future is now. Absolutely.
Well, we sure appreciate everybody tuning in today. We're grateful again to our colleagues, Megan O'Neill, Michael Hughes, Emma Lienerman, and their just amazing work, in addition to the dozens and hundreds of others around campus who have made this possible. Dr. Bronson and I get to chat with you each week, but the reality is that we're standing on the shoulders of many, many, many folks around campus that are making our job a lot easier. So
A whole lot easier.
absolutely. With that, we'll tune out, and thank you again. We'll see you next week.
Appreciate you.